Okay, good evening. Thank you very much and welcome to Employment Matters Committee, 28th of January. Just remember, this is being streamed, so if we can all use our mics, please, so all those people watching us tonight can hear. Item 1, apologies for absence. The only apology I've got is Councillor Crozier substituting for Councillor Sands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand you didn't know, and I didn't realise that the meeting started at 6 o'clock either. I've been outside for an hour, just sitting waiting. So. But there you go. And that's because I couldn't access on my computer, so I didn't realise there was blue papers as well. So.
Yeah.
But I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other apologies? I think everyone else is here. Okay, thank you. Record of the meeting. Do members agree to approve the record of the meeting of the committee held on the 3rd of December 2025? And to also note the record of the meeting of the JCC committee also held on the 3rd of December 2025. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. I have none. Item 4, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant others. Councillor Hamilton.
I am a member of the National Education Union.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
I'm a member of the NAHT.
Thank you. Councillor Peake.
I'm a member of Unison.
Thank you. And I'm a member of the ASLEF Trade Union. Thank you. Any others? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, pay negotiations 2026-2027. Sam Beck-Farley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a follow-up from the pay negotiations paper we discussed back in December. So you can see that the recommendation tonight for the committee is to offer a 3% increase for all staff on MedPay terms and conditions, which includes those on the legacy scheme. However, at the time of the paper was published, CPI was at 3.2%, and as officers we've always had the commitment, and it's very almost a core pillar of success through our MedPay programme, that we do match inflation when we're looking at our cost of living award. So since then, we were at the point when it was 3.2%, we did expect that as a forecast to get lower. However, we have seen a slight increase to 3.4%. And as I mentioned, as officers, in order to make sure the programme that we've just done the review on is successful, we do have an ambition that we will match inflation moving forward. So please, committee, bear that in mind tonight. The second recommendation on there at this time is not to return to the National Joint Council in terms of the pay scales. That is in light of what's ahead of us around LGR, but we are keen to make sure that we start to do a bit of forecast mapping to see what the impact that might be, not least because most definitely whoever we might be forming into the new unitary will be on NJC pay scales, and we're committed to do that as a joint piece of work with our trade union colleagues. Two other pieces I need to mention, if I may. So most definitely there was some commentary that would suggest that our financial settlement in terms of the headlines were very positive for Medway Council. If you look at our draft budget assumptions, it has got a potential decrease there, and that was the draft budget assumptions that were sent to Cabinet on the 18th of November. So please, again, in terms of the overall financial position, bear that in mind. And again, it was suggested that this pay claim this year isn't as creative as last year, but I do want to assure committee tonight that we do continue to look at our employee value proposition. An example of that is we're working with public health at the moment, and we've achieved our bronze standard around a healthy workplace award. The ambition and consideration to move us into gold will certainly look at more benefits for our workforce around health and well-being. And whilst last year had lots of amazing benefits, I hope you can appreciate that does take time to bring those benefits in, get those contracts up and running, as well as embed that into the service and make sure our officers, our colleagues, have full opportunity to utilise the benefits that are available for them. So tonight isn't the only opportunity for us to do that, and I just wanted to give assurance to committee tonight that that's an ongoing piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up to any member. Councillor Hackwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the budget, I've done some quick maths and they might not be wrong, but if we go to 3.4%, it will cost us nearly another £500,000. And then if we go to 3.6, it'll be another 800,000. We're already forecasting to be overspent by 25 million, which we'll have got away for EFS. Is the view that we will just say, well, we'll make it 26 million or something, or we'll be looking for savings elsewhere to fund that commitment that you've just made?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hackwell. I wish it was as easy just to bolt a figure on the end, so that would make life a lot easier. I guess we're in the middle of our round 3 forecast at the moment in terms of what that looks like as a budget for this year. A lot of that and our forecast then, and a more accurate forecast into round 4, will determine what that final value is. So we're right in the midst of discussing that at the moment. There's lots of discussion that takes place by directorates, and that goes deep diving into the budget to really look at what savings we need to make. So again, across corporate management team, as well as additional portfolio holder meetings with those directorates, there's more work to happen. So one is looking at what we can do to achieve a decrease in the overspend for forecast for round 4, but then also where we come in when we close at the end of year, what that determines for next year. So those conversations are ongoing at the moment. That final figure of what this impact is and where that will sit overall, I don't think we've landed on that overall figure just yet. Obviously it's imminent, it's almost there. And I guess the other thing to mention around weighing this up around, I appreciate appreciate it's small percentages, which creates a big salary bill. We are still in a situation where we still have recruitment challenges across Medway in some of our really significant posts. So, we've reversed here plenty of times around social workers, but that's also squaring out into other areas now. So even in my own HR team, we've got significant hire issues at the moment around a payroll manager, a health and safety manager. We've struggled to get HR consultants in. So whilst we've got other provision that will help there, things like skills allowances as well as retention payments, by not valuing our workforce, we're likely to lose more people. So, there is a real consideration here around us having done that pay review and made sure that our pay is competitive, that we want to keep it there and not be in a position again where we drift so significantly. We are faced with even more significant recruitment and retention issues. So I think that has to go into the mix around our ambition to develop against our council plan as well. So staff are very important and it is a real consideration. But of course, we've got to look at where else we can make those savings.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, did you indicate?
Yes, so just got a couple of questions. First of all, I'm just wondering what modelling we've done in terms of anticipated loss or creepage that we might have in the lead up to LGR, what potential savings or costs implications that might have for us as a council. And then the second one is obviously refer to the joint union's 10% pay claim or £3,000 pay claim that's been put to the NJC. And when we are looking at what our own staff unions have put forward, it seems relatively reasonable in contrast. But just going back, have we done any modelling around the costs and potential savings or recruitment, what our recruitment strategy is in terms of that lead-in time up towards LGR?
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. In terms of the modelling, so we will model from the centre based on the salaries budget, a number of variations against the budget pay. So all of our salaries are budgeted at midpoint, and that's to allow a workforce distribution of 20% at the entry point, 60% in the middle and 20% at the top. So a lot of our modelling will look at where our workforce sits within that. Now, if we're in a situation where we've got a huge number of people sitting at the top of the band, then the idea is that the team structure will need to change to fit the budget. So our modelling is very much based on a workforce strategy of what's possible against the service delivery in the main to make sure we can still deliver. Obviously, there's going to be assumptions in there around additional need for locums in a particularly hard to fill vacancy. So provision is made for what we perceive to know might be national challenges for us. In terms of us moving into LGR, we have a number of work streams that are set up in Medway. So one of those are for people, and that's one of the work streams I'm currently on. And what we're doing at the moment is making sure that our establishment data is accurate. So we're going through all of our data, making sure that's accurate to do some more forecasting. One of the tools we use is a 9-box diamond, which determines people's ambition and ability to be able to progress and move. And that in itself is giving us an indication of those who might naturally move on. We are asking for honest conversations with people around, I might be here until vesting day, but actually this would be my point when I'm going to step away. So we're looking at succession planning in those places where that's known to us. And we're just really trying to build up that transparency around having the honest conversation. With the work that we're doing through MedPay, we're keeping a watch on what's going on around us, most definitely from a competitive point. And the element of having the retention allowance and the skills allowance is something that will help us retain people should there be a need that somebody locally is paying more, but we might lose those key hires that we want to retain. We have discussed, but no decision's been made on things like golden handcuffs, where people actually stay to the end. We're probably not that far forward in our thinking at the moment. This period between now and announcement really is a matter of us really understanding our establishment data, making some predictions and understanding the risk. So the thought process is there, the modelling is there to a degree, but it's quite early in its infancy and that will only develop over time.
Sorry, can I just do a follow-up question? Is that likely to come to Employment Matters Committee soon, once you've got more clarity on what the lead-in is going to look like for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we discussed with the chair and the vice chair was at what appropriate point do we come into Employment Matters Committee on the work that we're doing and the stuff that we're looking at. So one of the key things that myself and what would be our our proposal going forward, so Swale, Dartford and Gravesham. One of the things we've done is we've got together and we've looked at the differences in our terms and conditions, and we're just looking at the risk across those areas, because only in the break just now we was talking about how difficult that might be to harmonise so many variations. So again, once we're in a position where we know who we're going to be coming in with, we can most definitely furnish some more information around the risk, what that looks like, and what we're going to do is a bit of a future plan around that people work stream. We have checklists available that we've got from other local authorities who have been through this. We're engaging in webinars, and we have corporate management team away days where we have people hopefully come in to talk to us about their experience and their risks and lessons learned. So all that is building, I guess, our programme of works right up to investing day, and that's already been cut into 3 programmes, if you like. So the preparation, the mobilisation, and then when we go live. So we have a plan of what we're going to do, but it's in draft. But most definitely I can give you, if I just go back to my notes and look at when we've got our next kind of sign off on that, we're together with service managers in March, going through a very similar exercise, talking to them about their risks, their fears, what that looks like. We've got a number of engagement sessions planned with staff that we're doing. So I can most definitely come back with a briefing paper and kind of all the things we're considering, the activity we've got to undertake, and the communication engagement we're going to do with colleagues.
Great, thank you. Slightly sideways questions, but obviously there are cost and savings implications to it. But the broader thing is that we want to retain our staff as much as possible.
Yeah, if I may, and then I'll come on to your NJC question, actually. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, most definitely. So, you know, we're talking about a number of options that are available. Now, we don't know who will be the decision makers in terms of the new unitary, but what we want to do is make sure we're protecting our people in the best way that we can. So we are hopeful that majority of roles will be 2P'd, if not all. That is a consideration. We do know there's been other variations that have happened in the past around STOs and then consideration for posts. We want to minimise that where we can to give people that certainty of moving across. And certainly from HR point, in terms of myself, we're building a unitary for the future, and it's got to be fit for purpose. You can't do that with what you don't know, and actually you've got to get that leadership layer in to really determine how you're going to deliver your services. And across the local authorities that may amalgamate into the new one, we don't know the level of sophistication around transformation, for example, but most definitely what we're hearing from people is don't wait for that transformation. Where there's opportunity, get moving quick. Where there's harmonisation to bring people together and co-locate people for opportunity, do that quick. So it's kind of keeping that excitement going and giving people a purpose to be here and be part of something great and good. And I think that's the main message that we are carrying forward. So yeah, lots to do, and absolutely need to retain as many people as we've got, because we've got a lot of good people. And if I may, just the NJC question. So whilst we're not in NJC, we do participate in all of the webinars that take place around NGC and the thinking around that. And we do know that there is also a 3-year deal that is on the table. I think trade union not here tonight, but I think even trade union were like, wow, that's quite a big percentage. But, you know, I can't talk on behalf of why they've gone in so high, but most definitely we know from previous years with NJC, there isn't a negotiation. It is normally a fat figure that comes back out. So I do wonder if they've gone in quite high, hoping there will be a negotiation this time. I don't know. But it's a key consideration. It's also an impact into the pay scales, something so big like that, and that's not something that could be done overnight. So we keep a watching brief. We do look across what we're doing, what they're doing. We do look at some of those allowances that they're putting in place. And really for us, it's making sure we're not falling too far away from it. But every time a pay goes in, we do look at what that means for us and what the impact is.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier?
Thank you, Chair. And just following on from Councillor Hamilton, what she was saying about the LGR, do our pay scales align with the other councils in the North Kent area, those that we may necessarily, you know, link with in the future?
Some do, some don't. So in terms of who we're hoping to go in with, we've got another organisation who's on local pay, and then 2 are on NJC. So we know certainly within NJC, although we've done the pay review, there are some grades that will be slightly out, and that's because our points to grade is slightly different. So if we had the luxury of time and we could have done this from scratch, we probably would have reviewed our points to grade to make sure it aligned better. So I think doing the forecasting piece with the trade unions, it's going to be a little bit finger in the air. It's going to be quite high level. We're not going to go right down into the detail, but it's certainly going to give us an understanding of the drift and what that might look like. Now, in some cases, I do believe it will be up and down. I think we've got variation across our areas. And again, because our points to scale are quite limited, implemented, we've had to use more so of the skills allowances that top the payment up. So even though the points to scale might not be okay, the pay might be okay. So I think that there's a few nuances that we need to work through, and it would be an important exercise to do to know what the risk is to us and whether or not that return to NJC is the right way to go through that harmonisation and the risk within that. So yeah, we're acutely aware it's going to be different at parts.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Fern?
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up one of the points from the pay claim of 6.6, the social worker England registration fee. We often hear about how difficult it is to recruit, and we spoke about tonight before the meeting, and cost of recruitment agencies and also agency staff. With that cost, you know, although it's an additional cost of £40,680, you know, what work actually went into looking if that would have, you know, perhaps helped with retention rates? Because social work is a area of you know, this organisation that we struggle with, and we often hear that social workers is a big issue to recruit. So, you know, what work actually went into that to sort of dismiss that from the claim?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Fern. So we had an honest conversation with the trade unions around their pay claim in this matter. So social workers have other benefits. So for some of the social workers, they have retention payments. They claim those annually, whereas other local authorities don't offer retention payments. So what we want to do is a bit of benchmarking to see if it is going to make a difference in terms of that overall pay packet. And the reason for that is not just because we don't want to pay the registration fee for social workers, but it's also we've got a lot of other areas of the business who need fees paid against their professional memberships. So the cost of this could be quite significant. So between the trade union pay claim coming in October, us getting into negotiation for December, there just hasn't been time to do that full mapping and consideration of cost impact. So we're not saying we won't do it. We just said we just need a little bit more time to make sure it's fair and consistent. And it might be that the policy is we will pay it if there is a national recruitment challenge, for example, but that will be a consultation through policy which will come back to this committee. It's not something we could just decide and not consult on, given there's impact to other professions across the organisation and of course the benchmarking that we want to do. So it's not ruled out, it's on pause.
Thank you. Councillor Cook?
Yeah, thank you. I'll feedback later in the meeting from JCT, but there was one discussion I thought was really useful to build on a bit more, particularly in relation to the example that's just been given there around particular groups that might be affected. And there was a discussion around the diversity impact assessment and why there wasn't a tick for adverse impact for low-income groups. And I found that really helpful. So I just wondered if you wouldn't mind just recapping that, please, Sam, because particularly I understand now we're talking about, you know, 3.4 rather than 3, and that's helped with that. But if there is perhaps an inflation rise again, for example, how come this doesn't affect low-income groups in an adverse way? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. So previously, we've only had the opportunity to receive a cost of living allowance, and there's been no ability to move through the bands. There's been no other recognition for anybody kind of increasing their skills, their knowledge and experience and moving. With the med pay review that now is in place, as well as the cost of living allowance, there is the opportunity for people to progress and increase during that kind of year. And that doesn't go away until the point that they're at the top of the band, and then we have the additional allowances that are available through the skill shortage or retention if that may be the case. And the example I gave, particularly in JCC, was on our last round of progression, we had 81 applications, of which 41 progressions were for range 3. So in terms of those who are benefiting and having the ability to really be able to progress through those bands and receive those uplifts, we are satisfied from our early evidence that people are not being penalised at the lower grades through other mechanisms of pay increases. We haven't done the full evaluation yet, so we're on the last kind of teams getting over the line around the med pay review, but a full evaluation will be done. And because we're only finishing that programme, we need to evaluate and watch that over a period of time and make sure that every quarter we're kind of looking at those numbers and seeing the impact that that is having. And as Nicola expressed within JCC, we will be doing a full equality evaluation against that as well, not just the numbers of the grades. It will cover age, gender, etc.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member? Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, so I have listened to what the trade unions have said during the JCC and had a little moment of reflection. And I'd like to make a recommendation, which is that the pay rise increase is in line with inflation.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. So we have a recommendation that the paper recommendation is 3%, that we, just to get this clear, that you recommend in line with inflation, the pay. I would support. I would just leave it at the rate of inflation. Well, we'll let the people decide, Councillor Hackwell. I'm quite happy to leave it open at the rate of inflation, and I support that. And for a number of reasons, for many years, the employees of Medway Council have fallen behind. I know there is a recruitment and retention issue at Medway Council. An example I was given, Swale Council are paying £10,000 for a post, a direct similar equivalent post, only in the next council. So we do need to pay our staff. They are hardworking. I know we'll be accused of bowing to our trade union barons and whatever else you want to call them. If that was the case, I think we'd be giving them the 5% and everything they've asked for. I think that's reasonable. It's not potentially not much more than the 3% that is, so I'm happy with that recommendation. So if we have no other further member to come in, I'll move the vice chair with that recommendation.
Would you like me to give a summary of the JCC
please.
discussion as well?
Do you need a seconder? No.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
So the JCC were pleased to hear the aim towards 3.4, and this would be the bare minimum that they were considered, with a request to whether this could be linked to CPI before full council. There was a request to review the figure provided for the KCC sleep-in payment in 6.4, and we've mentioned also wider creativity in the package. We've mentioned the query around the adverse impact, and the diversity impact review of MedPay. So I've amended the recommendation in light of the discussion that we've just had, to that members recommend to full council to agree an increase for all staff on MedPay terms and conditions in line with inflation, to word it that way, Chair, which includes those on MedPay performance progression pay scheme as well as those on the legacy scheme. And then the second part of the recommendation remains the same, to not return to National Joint Council pay scales currently, but keep negotiations open on this matter and do a joint piece of work on impact and cost assumptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Peake, is that agreed? Agreed. I'll take it as agreed. Thank you. You want to vote, do you?
Yes, just because
Okay, we'll take a vote. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All those for, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All those against. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Item 6, pay policy statement 26-27. Sam Beck-Farley to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the annual paper that committee see around our pay policy statement. So this lists a number of elements that we pay for both senior staff and lower paid staff. It's a typical policy that updates, as you would expect, annually. However, this year there is an amendment that's been presented under 6.4. So typically under the previous policy, anybody who is recruited above assistant director on a salary of over 100,000 would have to go to full council for approval. We have struggled on a number of recruitments now to get that approval in quickly, and it does delay our ability to go to market and also make those offers. This has been in place for a number of years and never been reviewed in light of the moving market conditions. So the paper is requesting that is moved to 150,000 and that it's actually referred back to the appointments committee, which is cross-party, before that appointment is confirmed based on whatever salary is negotiated. The reason for this, as I mentioned, is to speed up our efforts to bring in some senior hires that we need to do. We don't expect lots of our senior people to leave, but when it does happen, we do need to move quickly. They're critical posts for our organisation, and we do need to backfill as quick as possible without any further unnecessary delays. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member at all? Councillor Atwell?
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for the report. Just is 150 the right number? Is the question. Bear in mind, I think there's only 2 positions that the salary band goes up to 150. which is the chief executive and the deputy chief executive. Would there be a middle ground to say sort of like 125 or something like that, that would then allow other assistant directors to be appointed without, but still keep a little closer, because it's an annual policy, that figure could be reviewed annually rather than jump for a policy that wants to last for 10 years or whatever.
I mean, of course, there could be a middle ground. There always can be a middle ground. I guess the negative impact of the middle ground would be, should we lose a director who's on a salary of that amount, or we go to market and the salary of the director we lost was lower, but market has changed, that is going to delay a really critical hire. So for the sake of the very small amount of roles that we have in place, I think the risk is quite big to be on a middle ground. There's still going to be transparency over the amount that we're offering. That's still going to have to be agreement. So, you know, the governance is there still for this, but having the ability to use the appointments panel rather than full council just means we're able to move faster. So I think it's a big risk for very little, I suppose, little gain. Yeah, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Any other member at all? Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, I just want to go back on that. So in terms of 6.4, 150,000, that includes not just salary, but potential allowances and a whole range of things. So we could be looking realistically at more than just those 2 roles not being included. Yeah. So I'm absolutely fine with the proposal now.
Thank you. Any other member at all? Just from me, really just not necessarily about the changes, but I know it's in there already. The car provision and private medical insurance, it's only certain individuals, they get a car payment and medical insurance, but they don't necessarily have to go and buy a car or take out medical insurance. Is this in line with normal local government policy? And would it not be cheaper to provide them with a lease car and private medical insurance than just giving them this lump of money that they can do what they want? They could buy my son's Fiesta outside if they want and drive it around. They wouldn't want to, trust me. But
Thank you, Chair. Great question. So this is a legacy thing that's been in for a very long period of time. I think anybody who's in receipt of that allowance will tell you they can't get a car and medical provision on that amount that is there. So it's been put there as a purpose, but never been reviewed, never really been looked at. As part of our pay review, this allowance, I guess, is relevant to service managers and above. So as part of our pay review, we are looking at that whole kind of package. The allowance has in the past been used to top up salary where we haven't been able to top up salary, rather than it being seen as a benefit around medical or car, if I'm being honest, because of the limitations that we've had in the pay bands, hence why we've done the med pay review. But as senior leaders, they've been left to the end of the pay review, so we just haven't got to that piece. We're in the middle of the pay review for senior leaders and we're doing the career progressional frameworks, but as part of that there will be the benchmarking and the provision around what the allowance looks like. So yes, there probably is a better way to do it. I just don't have the answers for it at the moment, and it is a legacy hangover that doesn't really make sense.
okay, thank you. And the only other question for me is the essential car user, this 1,000 miles. Do people just get that because they might do 1,000 miles? Do they have to prove they do 1,000 miles? Is there checks and balances of petrol claims, etc., against that?
Yeah, so in terms of the central car user allowance, that is based on a job role of predictability around how many miles will be done, but that is checked annually. So the report is run in January and that is checked annually. At the moment, we're just about to embark on a piece of work that is looking at all the allowances because we have 3 different car users, which is a bit excessive for what we need. So we have dedicated as well, and we really do need to review all of those and come up with something that's quite simple. We have put this on hold for last year because of the med pay review. It was just simply too much to do for the team, and we are looking at our neighbours to make sure what we're changing doesn't drift dramatically from what other people have in. So as a core component of this year, that will be reviewed, but assurance is given that there is a check done in January around that, and people are given the option that if they, you know, we've come across cases where we don't just remove it instantly because people haven't done it. Sometimes people haven't bothered to put their mileage in, or they've waited, or they haven't given us the full mileage by January. So there is a grace period, if you like, where people can then submit their mileage. And there has been occasions where people haven't quite done the 1,000 miles, but they've then been recommended to have a dedicated car user's allowance. So it gets quite complicated, and I don't think it needs to be that complicated, but there is a process behind it.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? Councillor Peake, please.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. It just sounds like there's quite a bit to unravel. Just for the sake of honesty and clarity, the titles, car allowance and insurance allowance, to try and remember what we're talking about now, is there, it'd be nice to get rid of those titles and say what it is. It is pay. It's not actually amounts that cover that insurance. A more honest approach, if that's what we're really trying to do, is that Medway negotiates good rates with cars, good rates with insurance, and that is part of the package. This is the insurance that you have, and presumably it could still be a very attractive one. And if we're not trying to do that, those amounts shouldn't be called that because that's not what they are. However, you've just explained that it can be a way of topping up. I'm not quite sure how that works. Could it backfire if we changed the title, if we called it something else? That's the question.
I don't think it could backfire because we would make sure that any unintended consequences were kind of ruled out from the kind of point of putting forward a new proposal. I guess there's a couple of things we can do. We can amalgamate it in part of the salary because it's given regardless, so it's there with no expectation. But if there is a need then to link it into our lease car hire that we have, we could do that. The question we have at the moment is whether we retain as we've got lease cars at the moment or we use different schemes. So I think there's probably more questions that we've got to work through as to how we do it. But I don't disagree. There's no checks done for our leaders to say, have you used that on medical insurance? So it is misleading in that regard. And most definitely under our kind of wellbeing hat where we're looking at this healthy workplace, we do really need to be transparent around what's available across wellbeing. That suggests medical insurance, but we don't necessarily make people go and buy medical insurance. So it is misleading. It does need clarity. I Removing it would cause a negative impact and that would be problematic because it's been in partner hours contract and it is in the contract. So work has to be done around what that looks like, and some of that I guess will come out of that salary benchmarking. We might find some of those salaries actually are lower than they need to be, and therefore there's a genuine case to amalgamate that within a salary band, but we just haven't gone that far in that level of work.
Just as a quick supplement, be a case of, because it's too involved and potentially open up a can of worms, that you wouldn't renegotiate people's contracts and you would have a situation where you draw up a new contract for only new employees. And I know, if you get to know about this, there can be resentment, but sometimes that's the only really realistic way of doing it. Is that what you might try to do?
So this forms part of the med pay review, and one of the things we had as a commitment on the med pay review is nobody would be at a detriment, and you've heard trade union colleagues share that. That applies to all of the grades, regardless whether that's senior leaders or officers at our range 1 to range 8. So we wouldn't necessarily be forcing people to change their contracts. That's not what the med pay review is about. It's about making it easier to understand, easier to navigate, and easier to move through those pay bands. So we, as you know from the paper that came here previously, we wanted the 3 points in the band around the service managers and strategic service managers, and we were gifted with the 4. That first 6-month period, it might well be that's where that allowance comes into play. We just haven't worked through those options yet. So it's about making it attractive, not a detriment, but being more clear and transparent in why it's there. But it's a legacy thing we've just never looked at, never changed. It's been in the pay policy statement for best part of years, and it's never been questioned. But I guess because we've highlighted our allowances, our med pay review, and we're highlighting these things, there's more eyes on it, which is a good thing because it holds us to account for all of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, so I am a little, okay, so everybody works for the council. I don't see why a few people should have what are essentially legacy perks. So I would like to see it looked at actually, and for everyone who is in cars to fulfill their roles at the council to be on a relatively even keel. Yeah. I do understand that those who are in more senior roles get paid and remunerated a lot more, but I do feel that things that are legacy that no longer, fit with our values should be reviewed and a solution found for them.
Thank you, but that's going to be part of the med pay when we get up to senior leaders. So thank you. I think your comments are noted on that. Thank you. Any other member at all? Okay, thank you. Vice Chair, Councillor Cook.
Thank you. So there was just one action from JCC around section 2.61, which was going to be reworded for clarity. Other than that, the recommendation is that members are asked to note the updated pay policy statement in 2026-2027 as set out in Appendix 1 to the report and to refer it to full council for agreement. And I've just noted that that review of wider legacy incentives, particularly for senior roles, will be included in the med pay review. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Peake, thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 7, organisational change. Nicola Trainer to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a regular update report provided to this committee that provides information on the organisational change activity in the council. This report covers the period 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. In section 4 of the report, members will see the updates of the previously reported organisational change activity, and at section 5, a summary of new organisational change activity. Consultation is carried out with staff and trade unions, and every effort is made to prevent any redundancies. Where staff are at risk of redundancy, they are supported to find suitable alternative work through our redeployment process. A summary of the activity can be found at Appendix A. In this reporting period, there was one redundancy. The Employment Matters Committee is asked to note the present position and the support arrangements for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member? No. Vice Chair then, please.
Members are asked to note the present position and the support arrangements for staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Hamilton, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 8, early retirement and redundancy payments. Nicola Trainer to introduce again, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is another regular report to this committee. Whilst there is no specific decision to be made based on the report, it is important that the committee is apprised of all decisions taken in relation to early retirements and severance payments. During this reporting period, there were no school-based staff made redundant or that took early retirement. In terms of non-school-based staff, one member was made compulsory redundant and one employee took early retirement. The total cost to the council of all staff made redundant and or took early retirement during this period was £50,021.78. There were also 2 requests for flexible retirement and both were accepted. The committee is asked to note the report.
Okay, thank you. Any member at all? Nope. Vice Chair, please.
Thank you. So there was just one discussion to feedback to this meeting from JCC, which was a query around the consistency of the application of flexible retirement requests, and confirmation of policy position was sought, and that was discussed in the meeting. Other than that, members are asked to note the report.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Hamilton, is that agreed? Agreed. Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Meeting closed.